noticed your job title is head librarian and professor of women's studies.
Yes.
It sounds like you wear multiple hats. I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about it.
Yes, I do. I think, as probably most academic librarians do, a little bit of everything. I'm fortunate in that I do have that appointment in the Women's Studies program at Penn State. And while I haven't recently, because of the various ALA things that I've been doing, done as much in terms of courses, I have worked with some students who are interested in women's studies. I've done some independent studies with students. But I'm also the head of the library at the campus where I'm at, the Greater Allegheny campus. Penn State has about 24 campuses all across the Commonwealth. We're 13 miles southeast of Pittsburgh, so that's why I'm working sort of in that area, but I'm the head of the library at that campus and work with the students there who are either earning their degrees at that campus or maybe go on to other campuses and everyday operations for the library.
Well, you kind of anticipated my next question. I was going to ask you about your library.
Yes.
You serve collections and all that stuff.
Yes. We've developed the collections that are, since we're one university geographically distributed, we're one university library geographically distributed. So we also are building collections, not just for the ones that are housed physically in our building, but also the collections that are across the Commonwealth. So we're sharing those materials, even if they start at our campus and maybe end up at another campus, providing the instruction services that students need who are taking classes at the campus, as well as supporting the faculty that are there as well in terms of their research and service.
So do each of the sort of branches have their own collection development budget, or is it done at the main campus and sort of distributed out to the campuses? It's complicated
because we're one sort of organization.
We're one entity.
Yes. So certainly each library does have a collections budget that they work within, but for example, for electronic resources, those materials are all funded centrally, and so in a way we contribute to that access, and all of our electronic resources are accessible to any Penn State student, staff, faculty member at any location through obviously things like IP authentication. So we really do a lot of collaborative purchases as well for our budgets. We talk about print and electronic resources. So there's a lot of collaboration that takes place, it's interesting because if we were sort of true branches, then, sort of administratively would be singular. But since we are one organization, it's a little more fluid than that.
It sounds complicated.
It is
tricky.
It is complicated and complex, but it does works. It really, I mentioned in my, keynote that libraries and librarians are very good at collaborating, and if we weren't, this model would not have worked for as long as it has. So it's good. I know all my colleagues across the Commonwealth.
Oh, that's fabulous.
We work together. We really do. In terms of the one university model, I think the libraries are a model unit within the organization of how you can work together effectively, collaboratively across space and time.
As you were saying that, I was thinking that the library tradition of collaboration and interlibrary loaning and so on is really paying off.
Yeah, for our students, for our students and faculty, it absolutely pays off. Something can be, in the Philadelphia area, and a student here in the Pittsburgh area needs it. In a couple of days, they've got it in their hands. Or if it's electronic, we're moving to having access to full text materials more and more, so they're able to really get whatever they need. Nothing's never more than a couple of days away.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your tenure as ALA president.
Yes.
So you just finished.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about the experience of being the leader of the largest library association in the world?
The largest library association.
And if you could sort of pinpoint one or two major takeaways from the experience that you had.
Only one or two.
We don't have all time.
I know. It was a tremendous honor, obviously, to serve as ALA president. really an amazing year. The takeaways, I think if I had to nail it down just to two major takeaways, would be that, I mean, this is just a tremendous profession, and it's really an honor to be associated with people who work so hard to make sure that people have access to the information that they need, and that really applies to anyone. People are really working hard to preserve the right for whomever to come into the libraries and use them and get what they need. Is pretty amazing. The other major takeaway is that I have developed a really strong appreciation for the work of my colleagues in other types of libraries. My day-to-day work. Since I started in the profession, I've been an academic librarian, which is great, but I have really come to understand how vitally important the work of my colleagues who are, teen and youth services librarians in public libraries, or school librarians, or the special librarians I know who work in industry, how their work connects to the work that I do and makes me better as a librarian, and that we really all need to have an understanding and appreciation of the work that not just the people who do the kind of work that we do, but also an appreciation and understanding of the work that people who do things that are very different from what we do, because they are connected when it comes to those advocacy pieces. It is connected when we're talking about, equity, diversity, inclusion. It is connected when we're talking about challenges with funding. I just have really come to appreciate it, and under the umbrella of ALA, because oftentimes people say ALA is too big, it's too complicated. I really just need this one little piece of it, but that piece of it is where you can really sort of interact and do your best work and get those best practices and those practical pieces, which I think are incredibly important. But it's also great to be able to be proud of and have an understanding that we're doing this in concert in sort of a larger context, and that even if you aren't yourself maybe touching that piece, it's still, there are people who are championing that and allowing you to, be a part of a really incredible profession. Those would sort of be the first two pieces. Of course, there are more.
So I'm just curious, kind of practical speaking.
Yes.
How did it fit into, how were you able to do your job as head of your library and be ALA president? I think most people probably have no idea what the time commitment is and what it involves. I mean, were you just flitting across the country at one meeting after next and sort of left somebody else in charge at your library, or sort of the practical speaking of the year of being ALA president? What was it like?
It was a lot of work because, the position description for ALA president says, to consider it at least to be like a half-time position.
Oh,
it's really
it's a full-time. It's full of 1.5 times.
Exactly,
probably, right?
with no salary.
Yeah, right.
So, it's a great question because there aren't a lot of models for how to do this if you were still very much front line and working full-time. A number of ALA presidents had either recently retired or were intending to retire when they became president. I'm not going to be retiring anytime soon, but it starts with your institution, and so the dean of my library, Barbara Dewey, without her support, I would not have been able to even consider doing it, and I had her support, and every day I'm appreciative that she allowed me to have this opportunity. The complexities of Penn State that we've already kind of talked about, I think, really lend themselves to how it was able to work, because ALA is complex, and Penn State's also complex, and so that made some things actually not seem complicated because, this in ALA fits in the way that we do this.
Sort of used to the workflow kind of thing. Yes.
And so because we're one university geographically distributed, we're accustomed to doing things in different ways. By streaming things, you do a lot of things via email, you do a lot of phone calls. You don't get as much sort of face-to-face time. So my being away from the library wasn't necessarily different. It was maybe at times for longer periods of time, but it still fit into the workflow of us doing things electronically. I always say to my staff, even if I'm just going to a conference for a few days, if something really happens, you could call me. Certainly
sure,
don't feel that
right.
you can't do that. So we did that in the same way. It also gave my staff an opportunity to do more, to sort of make some decisions, and knowing that I would support them, because they didn't always feel, well, we sort of wait around until Courtney gets back to act
So they
on
were
this.
empowered
They were
to-
empowered, and I was really excited to give them that opportunity to say, you're going to make decisions. I'm going to support you. If there's something that we need to adjust on the back end, we'll do that, but you're in these roles because you're the best qualified person for this job, and my job, even if I'm here physically in the building, is to support you in that work. So even if I'm not here, I'm still going to support you in the same way. So I think that it worked out really well, and I'm really proud of the work that my staff did.
That's great. So do you think that they will feel empowered to still be empowered, even though you're in the
I hope
building?
so. I hope so.
Courtney's here now. We're going to rely on her for everything, for all the decisions now.
Well, in certain areas, there are things that they know better now than I do.
that's
So
great.
I'm
Yeah,
looking
that's
to
great.
them for, how did we deal with this last time? Do you think that makes sense now? If there's one little thing maybe I can ask about for clarification, but, I
that's
think
great.
that's the goal. We've all changed as a part of this process, and I have to, appreciate the ways in which they've
Sounds
changed.
like it's been a growing experience for
I think
everybody.
so, yeah. I really think so.
So in your talk this morning, you discussed how the experience of being ALA president changed the way you approach key concerns for libraries, how they can demonstrate their continuing value to the communities. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. I framed it in terms of advocacy, partnerships, and diversity, equity, and inclusion. The thing about when you're ALA president and you travel, people want to see, they want to show you their libraries. They want you to see what they're doing and what's going on. And, as I said earlier, this sort of idea that what's going on in terms of ALA and libraries, it seems very broad and far away, and it doesn't really connect to what I'm doing. It was really nice for me to sort of take a step back and reflect on this year where I've been, this sort of frontline advocate for libraries,
Right.
and, the person, who, you attend these meetings and talk to these partners, and, going to the FCC to talk to them about broadband
Wow.
and that sort of thing, and thinking about, well, how does this really connect to what I'm doing, and why is this important in the work that I do, and how can I get the average member to really sort of understand and appreciate why this is important. And it was great to be able to kind of step back and say there is a connection between what I do in, at a small campus, southeast, 13 miles southeast of Pittsburgh. And advocacy is really something that's important. The sort of national advocacy, component is important, because what we're doing with students is trying to prepare them for the world. We want them to be, these fantastic global citizens that are going to do amazing things, and certainly some of that advocacy piece should trickle down into that. They're going to move forward, they're going to the workforce. They may work for organizations where this is something that's very important, and we want to sort of have that as a part of what they're doing. I want them particularly in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion, to be people who are open-minded and approach the world as not necessarily, this big scary world out there, but to approach it with real intellectual curiosity. Some of our students, they come to our campuses, and it's the first time that they're really presented with any kind of diversity. And the spaces where that can kind of really take place comfortably, I realize, is in the library. Because if they're not in class, oftentimes they're in our building, and there's a real opportunity, I think, there. And so it's important that I have an understanding and a connectedness to that, and really sort of move some things forward. I think that we can do that, particularly in academic libraries, public libraries as well, school libraries, but I really think that as sort of the last line of defense almost in our academic libraries, that it's really like, this is really when they're pushing away. This is when the training wheels hopefully really do fall off once they walk across that stage. And, what have we done to advocate for that space be theirs? What have we done to advocate that the materials they need are in the collection and are well funded, that they recognize it as a safe space? What can we really do that allows that to be a reality? Another piece with regards to partnerships that I realized, I think we feel that, we have sort of natural partners on campus and we just have groups that we work with. Visiting different types of libraries and talking about people who do work very different from what I do really demonstrated to me that, hey, I'm having these conversations with academic affairs or student affairs, but I've never asked them that question, or I've never thought about partnering with them in that way. And what would it open up if I actually asked this question differently in terms of, the invitation to go to student orientation? We show up, we have our handouts and our brochures, and we really want to, but maybe they really could use support from the library in a different way that isn't so driven by, as the second keynote that we heard this morning talked about, the ID card is how they check out materials and authentication, so on and so forth. Maybe there are other things that we could be contributing to that process that would better support our students, because that's our goal. And I hadn't thought about it in quite that way. So it's kind of it's fun, it's exciting, it's very really and talking to people about it, and they go, they think, it's just all sort of ALA policy and and this, that, and the other, but that it really could have sort of real world application, that it really could allow you to do something a little bit different. It's pretty exciting.